Welcome back to the RUDIS Wrestling Podcast, episode 145. I'm your host, Matt Derlin, and today we're joined live in studio by four-time NCAA champ, world champ, founder of the Stieber Elite Wrestling Academy, and currently also the Ohio RTC coach, Logan Stieber. Logan, thanks for stopping in today.
Yeah, no problem. Excited to do this. This is fun, live.
Yeah, so it should be fun to see what people jump in and what questions they have to ask. But over the last year, I know we've talked about, it's almost been a year ago since you've opened up the Stieber Elite. So in the past year, you've decided to step away from competitive competition. And most people, when they step away from competing, their life gets a little less busy or hectic. It seems like you've just added to with starting the Stieber Elite Wrestling Academy, taking on the coaching reins of the Ohio RTC. Talk about how the last year has gone and shaped your new vision of wrestling.
Yeah, it's been fun. I think most people, when they think of professional, especially wrestlers, they think of these 8-hour training for 8 hours a day and all this crazy stuff. And the reality is it's maybe hour and a half in the morning and then hour and a half, 2 hours in the afternoon, and really have a lot of free time. So when I retired, I actually had a lot more work to do. It's just, the wrestling part was hard, but it was easy because I've been doing it for so long. And kind of funny, a lot of people, when I retired, they said, why did you retire a year and a half, whatever, before the Olympics? And now I look smart because now it's 2.5 years before the Olympics. But it's been fun. I mean, the club is something that I was excited about. And I was really nervous and anxious for the first couple months of it. And it's funny because my wife was always, she makes fun of me now because now I really miss them, and I was really getting into it, and everybody was getting better, and it was becoming a lot of fun, and it wasn't stressful anymore. And now, now I really miss it. Where at the beginning of the year, I was, wasn't sure how much I was going to like it, love it, or whatever. So,
obviously there's a high level of collaboration when you're a senior level athlete.
Yeah.
A lot of times people think, well, you just show up and your coaches put you through your workout. But at the stage you were in your career, I'm sure there was a lot of collaboration going on with Travell and the different coaches from the RTC about really collaborating about what you specifically need. But now that you're a coach and yourself, like, now you're collaborating for everybody, not only your senior level athletes, but all your Stieber Elite athletes. And so, talk about how you've talked about, like, my workload's actually multiplied like 2, 3, 4 times as opposed to when I was an athlete. Talk about that a little bit, about breaking down and getting into the minds and the training needs of your senior level athletes, but then how it differs for your, your age group athletes in the Stieber Elite Academy.
Yeah. So, I mean, with the senior level guys, we're trying to get these guys, to make the Olympic team. So this is really, really important stuff. And, every little thing matters. So we're just looking at, all the different people they're going to have to wrestle to make the team, and seeing, how they can, make adjustments and beat them. And I think you saw, especially in December with our guys, we wrestled really well. And, we had, I think, three finalists, and made a lot of good adjustments. Wasn't the best day, the best tournament ever, but made a lot of good adjustments. And we were planning on, and we were, in my mind, we were making the adjustments to, from November to December, we made a big jump, and we were hoping to have a big jump at the trials. Now we have a year now, so it's a little bit of time of, relaxing and doing a lot more studying of film. But it was fun because try to take these guys from such an elite level and get them even better, which is hard to do. And then for the young guys, that was like, that was just like creating a team. Like, you ever play sports on like Madden or baseball or anything? It's like you have these guys on your team, and you're trying to get everyone to be, a lot better fast. And they're all, especially the high school kids, they're all pretty good, right? They knew how to wrestle, but you could make huge jumps in the wrestling because of the knowledge that I had, right, and that Coach Sal had. So it was really fun to watch them grow and help them just figure out some things that, to me, wrestling for 20 years seems so easy. But you got these guys who are 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old. So it's pretty cool to, tell them something, see the kind of the light bulb go off in their head, and have it work. And you can see real-time results. I think that's probably the best part. One of the best parts about coaching is, having your idea or troubleshooting their problem and it work. It's like, wow, what I'm doing is working, and they appreciate it, because it's, if you help them with something that wins a match, I mean, even if it's just a match at a local tournament, it can mean everything. So pretty fun and interesting, for sure.
Well, before I jump into the next question, we're doing a different format today on this podcast, in that if you have any questions, you can text them, you can write them in live. And so if you have any questions, this is a show. So anybody tuning in, please feel free. Whatever you have for Logan, any training questions, any competition questions, any life questions, I guess you just send them our way. So let's go back to the December and the U.S. Open down in Fort Worth. And I specifically, want to talk about the Miles Martin versus Alex Derringer match.
Yeah.
And you were talking about having 3 guys in the finals there. But for me, as a fan, looking down and watching your reaction to Miles beating Derringer, it was like, this is one of your first great coaching memories.
Yeah.
And how did that differ from, because you've literally won everything, state titles, NCAA titles, world titles. So you've experienced the pinnacle of achievement at every level. How did that differ, having that experience and seeing someone defeat someone that had just beaten him a month earlier, and then turning around on the big stage to get into the U.S. Open finals and qualify for the finals trials?
Yeah. It's a pretty good feeling. It's hard to describe. There hasn't been, I mean, I always enjoyed winning, but I guess I always just took it in stride. Okay, I was supposed to win. I win. Good job. Very few events that I'd won where I was really, really, just truly happy. And when you're coaching, for me, I think about moments like that, all the time. There's been a bunch of those moments in the last, I guess, between my youth kids and then with the December tournament, lots of them. So for Miles, I thought in November that he could wrestle with and beat Derringer, and I think that he thought it, but maybe not believed it fully. So when he wrestled the match, it was a real close match, kind of conservative on both ends, and then he got a lead, and I think in his mind he thought, okay, now I gotta protect this lead. And then in December, you could tell. I mean, you could tell right off the whistle with their hand fighting is that Miles came in ready to win the match. Like he believed he was going to win, fully thought it was going to happen. And, he wrestled a hard 6 minutes and scored at the end. And I think, between just him believing and Tervel and I helping him and just lots of different factors, right? There's so many little things that go into it. For him to win a big match like that over someone who is just universally respected as just a beast, Alex Derringer. So for me, it was really, really awesome because it was a big win. Kind of checked off the box. Okay, qualified for the trials, and just not a revenge match, but he got that one back, which was really, really awesome.
And I think it wasn't for me just how he got the match back, but I think he like exercised maybe some demons in his mind from the semifinals of NCAAs. Like there had been a few situations from the semifinals in the NCAAs to the US Open the previous year.
Yeah.
And then to be back in that same situation where you've got to score, you've got to secure it. How much of it was a huge win for Miles.
Yeah.
Physically to get your hand raised against a guy that's people look at and recognize as one of the top 5 in the world over the past couple of years, beating everybody. But obviously, what his talent is, and he can beat this guy. But those mental barriers that he had to clear, do you think those were real things in his head?
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, I think everybody, me included, you go through periods of time where even if you've won everything, Miles has won, pretty much almost everything in his life. Now he's got to make a world team, but besides a world team level, he's won everything. So I think when you lose a couple in a row, especially the ones that you're supposed to win, it can play mind games on you, and you can forget how good you are. So I don't know, I don't know exactly where Miles's mind was at, but I know that when I watch Miles in the room, I'm blown away. So when I see him wrestle some of these matches where he didn't accomplish all his goals, right? That's no secret. So for him to wrestle like I see every day in an event like he did in December was awesome. I think it was good for him, great for him, for his confidence. And I think that after that, he truly believed, okay, I can make the team. I think, he probably wanted to and thought, okay, let's do it. And then after that, he's like, okay, now we're going. Yeah. Now I'm back. So really, really cool. Great win for him. And I was really excited for the trials, really, really excited. And, I think that this time is good. He can get nice and stronger. He can get better technique. He can, get better at what he needs to do. And I think that he'll be in better shape next year.
Awesome. Well, we've got some of our first questions coming our way, and we're probably going to have to pivot and switch around different things based on the questions. So that's kind of the fun part about it. So the first question we have comes from Zach Smith, and he wants to know what your pre-match routine was in high school. And I think this is important not only for you, but it also kind of touches into and taps into what you're doing with Stieber Elite. Not only are you teaching techniques, but you're teaching best practices for young age group wrestlers as they're starting to navigate up, the wrestling ranks. So what was your pre-match routine in high school?
Yeah. So in high school, it, kind of led everywhere, all the way up, but I always tried to be really relaxed. It's something that when I got too hyped up and too like in the moment, I'd get tired quicker. My adrenaline's too high, and it just wasn't good for me. So what I try to preach to our guys, and it's also kind of listen, if you need to get slapped in the face and get fired up to do your thing, then fine. But I think for the most part, it's staying relaxed and a nice calm mind. I think that kind of your mind starts racing, you start putting in all these different strategies, thoughts, doubts. It gets kind of tough to focus on what's important. So for me, I like to bounce around real kind of like slow, like just keep my heart rate low, try to relax. If I got nervous, because I think when people say they don't get nervous, I don't think that's true. I think people are better at pushing out the nerves. But to just say that you just don't get nervous is tough. And I think it's unrealistic to tell somebody else not to just don't get nervous. So I would always try to push it out. And I will remember, because in high school and college, I always would wrestle really, really tough guys in practice. So for me, it was like, this guy is not better than, whoever I'm wrestling. Like if I was wrestling in college, wrestling Ramos or somebody like that who's awesome, I would be like, well, Ramos is good, but he's not better than Reese, I don't think, or Sean Bunch or Jaggers. So while the person I was going to wrestle is very tough, I'd already wrestled somebody better than that. In high school, I wrestled someone good. They weren't better than Danny Mitchell, who was, a college guy. I was in high school. So I always had, tough opponents. So that kind of helped calm my nerves. And, just I tried to be excited for wrestling. So try to, be excited for wrestling, keep my heart rate low. And if nerves got in, push them out. And my strategy was I knew that the people I wrestled in practice were better than the opponent I was wrestling.
I think the mistake of a lot of young athletes is it's going to be a given that you're excited to compete.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we train to do. So we're going to be
sure.
excited. But I think most young athletes, the biggest mistake they make, they want to ramp up that emotion.
Yeah.
And that usually actually confuses the situation. You're already in a heightened state. You don't need to crank yourself even up more and wrestle purely on emotion, because emotion is just, it just confuses the situation.
Yeah.
And to your point, it's like you've got to push that emotion out, and so you can be very clear and focused when you get into competition. So, and I think that's kind of counter to what most people do. They're like, I want to get more emotional than I need to be.
It's funny because in high school and in college, it's a little bit different in high school because Hunter was way below me in high school rather than after me in college. But I would watch Hunter, before, and we were small school, and so we had a lot of quick matches. But for Ironman and Brecksville, I wanted to watch him, so it was like, okay, I'm gonna watch him, but I have to just stay kind of stone faced, and if he gets pinned, if he gets beat up, if somebody from the crowd runs out in the match, I gotta stay relaxed, because it does not matter what his match. For me, I need to wrestle my best, and for him the same thing. So we have to, concentrate on ourselves. So for me, if I wanted to view his match, which I did, I just had to just stay relaxed. And, I watched him lose a couple times before me, or just once, I guess. He didn't really lose ever. But I watched him Ironman once. I remember he lost, and I was like, that's surprising, but okay, now I got to go. It doesn't matter. I got to go, and we'll deal with that later. But
yeah.
And, he was really good at that. It happened the opposite way in college, where I would lose. I lost, I remember, to Minnesota, and then he went out and he actually, beat his Minnesota guy, probably worse than normal. So maybe he used it as motivation, where I kind of used it as not motivation, but I was able to watch it and, numb to it, for the next 10 minutes, and then can react. So
we've got another question from Mandy.
All right.
Mandy would like to know, which of your 4 NCAA titles, which is your favorite to look back on?
My favorite to look back on. That's I mean, the answer I usually give is my 4th, because we won the team title. So that was pretty cool. I would say the one that I really wanted to win the most, and it's funny because I'm friends with them. I wouldn't say good friends, because we're from we're different areas, and haven't got to the good friends, but probably in the future, was against Tony Ramos. I'd known him my whole life, wrestled a lot, known his family, all good people, and we wrestled. He beat me a couple times freestyle. I beat him like 12 maybe, and I just remember I did not like Iowa that much. I wanted to beat him bad, right? So I was really, really happy when I won in the finals against Tony, and it wasn't really against him, as I really wanted to beat Iowa. I don't know. I remember thinking, or I remember seeing, the message boards and stuff, and comments of saying, like, Tony deserves it because he works harder. And the only source of the information they had for that was that he went to Iowa and I went to Ohio State. For some crazy reason, they thought that I just, I tanned a little bit and hit my armbar halves, but I didn't really have to work that hard. I don't know why, But in my mind, I was like, no way. Like I'm crazy. I'm a maniac. Like nobody works harder than me. So I really wanted that one. And like I said, it wasn't anything, especially not personal now. I mean, I love Tony. Tony's a good guy. You know.
Well, it's funny. I think a lot of times it's just the natural tendency of fans, right? There's always going to be a bias there, number one. But also when you see someone dominating and you're so dominating from a young age, from that freshman year in college, I think people, they lose sight of the fact, like, yeah, I do have a lot of talent, but I accomplished what I accomplished because I work as much as talented as I am. My work ethic matches my talent, and therefore it's even more important to me. It's driving and fueling everything I do. So it's like, how can you say this guy works harder than me? Like, I mean, like, you ever need any extra motivation to win a national championship? But it's funny where some of that motivation comes from. It's just, okay, I'm going to use that. Right.
Yeah. It's funny. And Tony he was kind of, I don't know if playing a character or something. But he was definitely different than how I know him now. Right. He was the rough and tough, like in your face, stare you down type of guy. And for me, I was like the opposite. I was kind of just, just kind of fine with just hanging out and no issues ever. So, that also probably played into it where I was like, okay, I want to beat this guy. I want to beat Iowa.
Yeah.
And, it was cool. So that one probably, the NCAA titles were, I guess it's easier to say now that it's over, but, I haven't really, I don't know. I cared about the winning the title, so that's not the right thing to say. But now looking back, I'm, I don't even, it's not a big deal to me. I don't care too much about it,
Because I think what most people, like, kind of what you're saying is like, this was your personal journey. You just so happen to face Tony in the finals or Jordan Oliver, but yet you'll remember them because they're part of the narrative to the story. But that's not what your focus was. The whole time was the journey within yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And the focus on what you need to do to win that first one, then win through the fourth one. So I think a lot of people don't understand that as much because they think it's like, oh, this storyline that it entails you and Tony, or you and Jordan, or the other two guys that you face, but it's an individual journey.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. It's a individual journey, and it's fun. It's a fun journey when you make friends and you memories. And like I said, it's like I wanted to crush Tony, and now something happens, I text Tony. He knows everything. He texts me. So it's like we're good. He was on the Facebook Live the other day with Jay, and so it's like it's fun. It's it's good stuff.
We've got some more questions coming in. We've got one from Tyler, and this is specific to what's going on currently. Is like, Tyler wants to know how you're managing to work with Miles and Nate during the time of quarantine. Obviously, you guys can't physically get together, but what are you guys doing now to keep current, keep engaged, understanding, keeping a pulse on their individual training and what they're doing? So what are you doing with those two guys?
Yeah. So, kind of like we talked about off air, it is a time where, they would be off right now because of the Olympic trials. But since it didn't happen, right, it's all about, staying in shape and not getting worse. Right. So we don't need to make crazy strides, but let's stay on the same path we're at. So we've had meetings with them, or Travell's been meeting a lot with them, and going over technique, sending them videos. We talk to them once a week, and give them a plan, right? Running plan, a lifting plan. And I think time off of wrestling is good, especially for guys who have been training hard. And these guys have been through like an 8-week hard training period. So they're at probably week 7. I think it would have had one more week and then a week off, or week on your own. So they're at week about 7 of a hard training cycle. So they so they kind of needed a little bit of a break anyways, and they were going to get a break. So they're running and they're doing lifting exercises. But we're just kind of trying to be good citizens and do the right thing, and help stop spread what's going on, and so it's just a lot of at home workouts and watching video and visualizing and just training your mind. And so it's challenging, but I think that it could be if you use it to your advantage, it can be a very good thing. Um, yeah.
So let's keep talking about those two guys specifically, because at this point we're several, at this point we're a week removed from the Olympic trials. We're several weeks removed from knowing that the Olympic trials will be postponed, the Olympic Games will be postponed until 2021. So specifically Miles and Nate have had some time to wrap their mind around the fact that it's getting pushed back for a year. It's still coming, but it's pushed back for a year. And I talked to Kerry Cole out a couple of weeks ago, and he said, Matt, you know what? If they push this back a year or 10 years, the guys that are truly committed to winning an Olympic title, it's not going to deter them. It's not going to interrupt their focus or their motivation. The guys that want to use it for an excuse, they could use it for an excuse. He's like, but those guys, I don't think ever really believe or were committed to being Olympic champs to begin with. Now with Miles and Nate being young and just being a year, and Nate being two years removed from his college career, what type of benefit is this that they actually have another year?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've seen it with them, where they're on an upward trajectory. So I think for them it's a bummer because they were ready in my mind, but hey, use it as time to get better. I mean, you were planning on being better in 2021 than you were in 2020. I mean, I hope so, right? If not, then they're probably shouldn't be in RGC anymore, right? So they were planning on being better next year than this year. So unfortunately, they didn't get to accomplish what they wanted this year, but they get to do it again next year. So I think that, like you said, very easy to use it as an excuse, and we'll see a lot of people do that. I was ready, and it just, I did this, did that, and just didn't work out. But I think that our guys, hopefully, and are going to be doing the right things and use it to their advantage, get better, get a year, it's in their mind. Maybe I thought they were ready, but maybe in their mind they didn't think so. Maybe they thought, man, I mean, this kind of hurts, or had some doubts. Now they get a second chance. So I think a lot of people will, like we said, use it as a excuse. I think some people will use it as an excuse to get better. Like, okay, now I'm back. This is a sign. So,
because I know with Miles, when I've talked to Miles, it seems like, and I hear this a lot from really successful college guys, once they jump to the senior level, all the things that they were told and coached to buy into, but they had a certain talent level that they could still get away with little things, like really dialing in their nutrition, or really dialing into the recovery process, or doing the things that they don't necessarily like to do, but are necessarily if you're going to be the best guys in the world, like lifting the way you should, or running. And I know Miles, when we talked a while ago, he's like, yeah, it's like, I knew all this stuff was important. He's like, but I didn't know how important nutrition was. I didn't know how important running and putting myself in place of discomfort that I don't like to do, and how necessary it is to put myself in uncomfortable situations. It seems to me like with Miles, it's like, not that he was like cutting corners or anything like that, but he was so talented. Like, he could get, not that he was getting away with stuff, but he didn't have to dial it in as strictly as other guys. And now he understands, like, there's no margin of error. I have to do everything perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, you're right. I think that with these guys, and just, if you're professional, and some that have the professionals, are just doing it to do it. But I think the other half, they want to win. So I think that if you're not on, full focus the whole time, it's easy to see someone when they slip to fifth or sixth, and you're like, wow, I thought they were going to be, in the finals. So I think that just being in it, and I think that's helped Miles a lot this year. Just the events, wrestled at the NYC. He wrestled well, made the finals, but semifinals, made made a couple mistakes. His first round match, didn't wrestle the way he wanted. And in December, wrestled a lot better. Wrestled the way that he wanted to wrestle. And then he went and wrestled in France in January. Again, wrestled the way he wanted to wrestle. I think he beat the guy who got fifth last year at the Worlds, and another good guy from France that's a Russian. So he was improving, and I think wrestling those matches helped. And a lot of times you see if someone has a unique style, they say, maybe they shouldn't wrestle as much. People start to learn their style, and that's kind of one way of thinking. But you have to kind of learn how to wrestle the way you want to wrestle. And when you're beating everybody bad, which is what he was doing in college, he had a disappointing end, of course, but he was beating everybody bad. So it's easy to think that that's always going to work, and then when it stops working, causes you to kind of reflect a little bit. And it's okay, I want to wrestle like this. I need to do this. And you were seeing it for Miles this year, which is cool, which is really fun to watch his growth, from November, December, January. And I was really excited, like I said, for April.
And that's the thing when I look at Miles, like, man, if he can keep this trajectory going, because it seems like, he's climbing uphill again, and he's making gains, and those gains are compounded by, you can see the level of confidence and belief that he's getting at this level now. But then let's flip the page towards Nate. And Nate, the biggest thing with Nate is like the guy can't catch a break. He's pretty much been unhealthy for 2 straight years.
Yeah, he's been a little bit unfortunate, but he's just such a believer that he's going to do well. And he's someone who he asks a lot, but is so grateful. So and when I say he asks a lot, he wants help in the areas, which is hard sometimes for people to ask for stuff. And Nato, he's funny, man. He's so he's really grateful, which is such a great quality to have as a person, wrestler. And he works hard, and he does a lot of things right. And he was wrestling really well again, and wrestled well in November. Kind of same story, right? Wrestled well in November, had a lot of matches where he came from behind, and then lost in the finals. And in December, he was crushing everybody. Lost one to Spencer, but a good match to wrestle, in my opinion. Feel him out. It's been a while. Feel him, see how he can do and see how he can wrestle better. But was really crushed. I think getting all techs maybe leading up to that. So, yeah, Nato is just keeping his body healthy, doing the right things. And for Nate, I feel I just told him actually. I felt the same confidence in Nate as I did myself 2016, and where he was going to come in like 4th or 5th seed or something like that, but had as good a shot as any to win. Of course, I didn't make the team in 16, so I would hope that I want him to do better than me. But I felt really confident in his wrestling because he was just ready to go, and he was making adjustments, and he was listening to Terrell and I, which is just really cool, good to see.
And do you think the extent of these injuries, and it's pretty much been 2 straight years of battling something along the way. Do you think battling those injuries actually opened him up and made him more accessible to coaching? Because I think, and I don't want to put words in Nate's mouth, but I know him, and I'll let you break down his mentality, but he seems like a guy that wants to, as much as control as he can insert into his life from his training and each one of his regimens, from training, lifting, resting, recovery, PR, it seems like you probably don't have to push him to do the right things. If anything, you got to maybe pull him back.
Yeah.
And by him battling through these injuries and him trying to approach and rehab, has it made him more open to things?
Yeah,
maybe?
I think so. I think that just because, he's had kind of the body issues, he's able to listen to Terrell and I, and Jay when we say, okay, you need to take a break here, or you need to not do this. And he's doing it himself now more, where he's not running as much and he's biking more. But yeah, you start to have these injuries and you feel down on yourself. You kind of go through these cycles where you feel down and then you build it back up. you have wrestle really well and then you get injured and you go down. You start to you either become resilient to it, or you kind of dig yourself into a hole. And he's becoming resilient to it and getting stronger from it. Which is it's just hard to do. It's like how many times he can knock down. So, but he's he's doing a good job, man. NATO, good guy. I'm happy that he's with us.
Yeah. So we got some more questions coming in. We've got one from Tyson Clear. Tyson wants to know how he can analyze which techniques fit his style best.
Well, I mean, I would say, what do you like to do? So if I'm trying to coach somebody, if I'm trying to coach Nate, who's a high crotch machine, and he says like, listen, I'm not really a head inside guy, which he is a head inside guy a little bit. But we'll just say he's not a head inside guy too much. I'm not going to show him all these different finishes and techniques from the head inside. It just doesn't make any sense. But what I would do is I would give him variations off of his high C when he gets beat a little bit, and if he shoots from the open, how's he landing in there? So if he's landing extended, we'd work on some extended high head outside. It wouldn't do us a lot of good to work on an area where he's just not in that much. So for the the answer to the question is figure out what you like to do. How do you wrestle? You just watch a match of yours. And if you don't know, watch one of your matches and say, okay, I get caught in the head inside single. I get caught when I miss, and I have trouble off bottom. And then you try to find the best wrestlers who are good in those areas, or your favorite wrestlers, and learn. Especially now, you have time to get on YouTube, Flow Wrestling, or RUDIS techniques, and find, okay, he's great here. Let's figure out how to get away. It's like if I'm trying to get away on bottom and my stand up's not working. Maybe I watch Colin Moore. I was like, oh, we got a head high turn. Okay, sit out. Let's do that. Let's learn how he does that. I would say you don't need to. I know all the moves, but I don't need to be proficient. I don't need to be 10 out of 10 in all the moves. Maybe a 10 out of 10 in the moves that I do. And then if I get in a situation, I can figure out what to do there. So analyze technique, figure out what you want to do, what you like to do, and then become good there by watching and learning.
And this is a follow-up, and this is my follow-up question, because I think it ties directly into this. Like, it's great learning what you do well and getting better at it. But now we've seen over the last 8-10 years, it's always been around, but I think for younger age groups level, the concept of play wrestling or spar wrestling or whatever you want to talk about, I think that's how you can really develop a better understanding outside of just a practical application of my hand goes here, my head goes here, I reach over to this. Like, talk about how sparring, play wrestling, however you want to describe it to your athletes, how do you incorporate those areas to master new techniques?
Yeah, so we do it. We do a little open spar every now and then, and which are good. They're good for weight cutting or whatever. Just kind of get in there and wrestle a little bit. But to really get good at an area, we like to spar the position, which is something that, a lot of people do. But what I've seen a lot is a lot of everything is just open sparring, which is good. But it's kind of like I said, it's kind of good just to keep your sweat going or whatever. But if I need to get better at leg attack defense, I have the guy shoot in, and when he gets in, it's 90% spar, and I can kind of gauge. Or maybe we start at 80%. And if it's not enough, it goes up. If it's too much, it goes down. But really sparring the positions. It's not like, okay, I need to get better at head inside single. Let's just do open spar. When I get in head inside single, I'll really focus. It's like, no. Spend 5 minutes. 5 minutes position. 5 minutes in the head inside single. 10 minutes in the head inside single. And the guy just defend it. And if it's like a technique, if it's a practice, we might do 5, 5, 5, 5. If it's a morning technique or something like that, the whole 45 minutes will be spent there. If you need to get better on bottom when the guy's leg in, it's like we can drill 3 or 4 different ways to get out so them. And then it's okay, let's get a guy on top and let's have him go really, really hard. And I think a misconception with sparring is that it needs to be super playful and light and kind of rolling around, which is, again, it's if you're cutting all this weight and you have all the sweats on and you need time. If you need an hour, then go do whatever you need to do. But to get better, it needs to be hard. It's harder than live, in my opinion. And live, I take a guy down, I can sit on top and tilt him and catch my breath. But in a sparring, it's hard, and you see it. I think you'll see with the better guys when their intention is to get better in their sparring. It's all out, and you're figuring out positions, but it's hard. Sometimes you don't give it up. It's just hard, and there'll be spurts of you kind of jump around. Maybe you level off at 90%, but there's sparks where you're at 99, and then you get a little bit lighter at 80 or whatever. But it's hard, and I think a lot of people don't do that, and it's hard for kids to do that. So for the elite guys, pretty easy, but for kids it's hard because you get your feelings hurt and you start crying or you're fighting or whatever. So it's hard to introduce that type of sparring to the youth kids, but at the elite level, the elite college guys and RT guys, it's a hard spar.
Because I think the hardest thing to master here is it's literal practical application. You have to be thinking as you're working through these situations where when you're going to live, you turn off your mind and let instinct take over. But in sparring, it's both sides have to really be thinking about, okay, this is the feel I have to give to the guy. This is what he's trying to figure out. So I have to think, and I have to probably jump ahead of where he's going so he can react. I'm ahead of him.
Yeah.
So I got to keep reacting ahead of him so he can learn. And then the offensive guy or the sparring guy who's trying to get better, he's got to be thinking too. It's like, okay, this guy is giving me this look. So if I'm anticipating he's going here, I've got to end up there. So it's like active participation from both sides and active learning. And so there's a high level of engagement. And I think that's the most difficult things for young athletes or high school athletes to understand. Like to your point, when people talk about play wrestling, they just think it's like grab ass where you're just rolling around and just making things up.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's like you're applying concepts here.
Yeah, I mean, it's if I'm drilling a head inside single, I hit a head inside single, lift it up, trip him, take him down. And if we're play wrestling, I hit a head inside single, he does a weird somersault, and I score. They both are the same thing. Now they're called different, right? Play wrestling and drilling, but they're both unrealistic kind of defense. So it needs to be something where it's tough and it's a realistic feel. And I know when I'm coaching and I see an unrealistic feel, you kind of get on the other guy because one, they should be doing something that bettering themselves too.
Yeah.
So yeah, very interesting. But it's hard to get with the little guys, but the big guys, older guys, they really get it.
Yeah. So we've got another question from Carson Bob, and Carson wants to know what's the best way to stay in shape during this quarantine period. Are you doing anything yourself,
simple,
or are you?
Very simple.
What types of things are you telling your athletes?
Run, go outside and run. There's nothing like a hard run. So I know that we always talk about 2 mile time. Run 2 miles in 12 minutes. If you can't, get faster. And if you can, get under 11. But if you can run hard, it's hard. There hasn't been, I know through Ohio State, hasn't been too many guys who've done really well who can't run hard, and get close to 12-minute 2 mile. So run hard. And I would say, stance in motion, because stance in motion is hard. Go do stance in motion for 20 minutes straight. Don't take a break, or if you have jump rope for set a goal, 20 minutes nonstop. Every time you mess up, restart. So there's lots of different things you can do. I tell the little guys push-ups, watching TV. Now everyone has Netflix, so there's not that many commercials, but if you watch TV and it has commercials, every time there's a commercial, you bust out as many push-ups as you can. That makes it easy, fun. You're watching TV, no problem. But for the guys, who are middle school, high school kind of level and above, run hard, run far, and that'll get you tough.
Because for me at least, there's a pain in wrestling. There was always just a strong dislike for me in running, but I knew it was necessary, and it introduced a level of pain that I experienced while I was wrestling but it made me, it was the only thing that could force me to stay as disciplined as I was when I was wrestling.
Yeah.
Probably because I hated it. And I tried to turn it into a competition. Like, I hate this. This is a bad feeling. I don't like anything about this. But if I can hold myself accountable, if I can discipline myself to hit that 12-minute mark in a 2 mile, like, all right, haven't taken a step off.
Yeah.
I've earned every step of that way. Is that some of the similar things you think about when it comes to running?
Yeah, I mean, it's something where I never got it. And by the way, the 12-minute mark should be standard. That should be, if you can't do that, you need to get up to speed. When you run, there's different levels to the tiredness, and I only really felt it a couple times, but it's kind of a scary feeling where you start to lose control. You feel like you're just gonna puke while you're running. You kind of lose control of that ability to stop it. And that's a hard run, and that's not a 100-yard dash. That's a 2 mile, 3 mile at a pace where it's scary. It gets nerve wracking, right? So whenever we had a big run or anything for, when I was in college, that I was nervous because I knew that I was gonna take myself to a place which is hard to get to, especially wrestling, especially live. It's not always a sprint. Now, if you're in a good partner or gunslinging, then it starts to get a little bit of hard. But running, it's just you versus you, so you can always go harder, right, until you fall, until you collapse. So I remember when I was in college, my senior year, we did 3K, 200 meters less than 2 miles, and I think the first time I did it was like 11. No, it was 10:57, something like that. So probably like 11:30, 11:40, 2 mile, and I was a good runner. But I had gotten better, and my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, she was cross country, and I asked her, I said, "What's a good 3K time?" She said, like 11 minutes is fast for a non-runner. All the girls could run it under 10, 9:30s. The guys could run it in the 8s. Crazy. They're like under 11. I was like, I already did that. I said, what time did you run? And she was like 9:56. And I was like, okay, how do I run that? So we have a 200 meter indoor track. It was winter. And she's like, well, to get a 10-minute flat, you need to do 40-second 200 meters. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try it. And so we did it. And I was running 40s, like 37, maybe the first one. You kind of come out hot. Everyone else like 40s. In the last probably three laps, I was in like scared pain, like scared. Like, I don't know if I'm going to drop, I'm going to puke, what's going on. And I ended up getting same time as her, 9:56, 3K, which is pretty fast.
That's flying, man.
It's not very fast
that's
for
flying.
a runner, but for a wrestler, it's pretty fast.
Yeah.
So I don't like to brag about my wrestling, but I was pop a shot. I'm good at pop a shot, and I was a good runner. So I like to sometimes, if the chance comes, talk about my speed.
So we had a short interval track at Penn State, an indoor track. Now, was it easier for you to maintain short interval paces, knowing like, okay, I got to hit that 37-second, or is it like when you have to do it over and over and over, and like, oh crap, I got to do this 20 straight times under 40? It's like exactly. Every time I think
I had to do 15. So it was stressful. I think that my wife said I probably would have been a second or two faster on a 400 meter track because there's less turns or whatever. But it was hard. It was hard. I was a drop. I mean, I remember running at the first couple laps. One of the people, coaches or something, was like, all right, pick it up. Because running 40-second, 200 is pretty slow, actually. But I had a plan. I was like, listen, the math's going to add up. So this is a hard pace to do the whole time. It's not a hard pace to do one lap. Did you
ever miss a lap and have to, I got to make up 3 seconds here, 2 seconds here?
I think maybe a couple 41s, but I had the first 2 laps, everyone goes out really strong. So the first 2 laps were like 37, 38. So I knew I had a little bit of time to play with. And I think that I was probably within that 40 going into my last lap. And I remember I was hurrying, and then with about maybe 20 or 30 meters left, I was like, oh God, I gotta finish this. This is hard, but it's hard to do, and it's just something that I don't know. I don't know why I was able to do it, but I when I see it somebody else, and I saw it this year in Sasso when he ran, and I saw it in Joey when he was wrestling 2 years ago, where you are just so exhausted, where you're like you can't stand up exhausted, like you almost look like you're gonna be like crying exhausted because you left everything. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
So it was scary to run.
So we got a couple more to finish up before we close out this episode. But the last thing that I will talk about when it comes to running and putting wrestlers through a running workout, wrestlers can turn running into a contact sport.
Yeah.
Like I get the most enjoyment out of thinking about all the running workouts I used to do, especially on the short interval track where there's nowhere to go. There's a railing and a wall and you got 40 guys packed in, and like how the wrestlers will turn it into a contact sport.
Well, it's scary. Like sometimes when we would have time trials. I remember vividly one time my brother, we had to get it under 32 seconds for 200. And that was hard. Some of the faster guys could get in the 20s, but my sprint was like 30, 31. So we had to do however many. And I remember like my brother was struggling. I don't know if he's a little out of shape or something. He was struggling. And then we're trying to push him. And at the end, we're like, man, cut the corners, man. Come on. What do you do? Like cut through the little fake grass. I don't know. I don't want to run anymore. I'm dying. It's hard for us now. So it's start pushing people. And if you want to win badly, I guess you could. I don't know. I never had enough energy to push anybody out of the way. A couple heaters, but yeah, it's funny. It can be definitely a contact.
Yeah.
When you're doing sprints.
All right, so we've got a couple more here I want to get to. So we've got this question from Chris F. Chris wants to know the one situation you would always wrestle live in to prepare for competition.
I mean that's a good question. I mean sometimes it would depend on who I was wrestling, but I remember the kind of the most normal one was live once I got in. So it was like a hard hand fight. So like a 80-90% hand fight where I had to work extremely hard to get in, but they would let me in if I did the right work, and then once I'm in, it's live. And head inside single was the position that I was always in. So I didn't really drill too many other positions with my feet. So like low double leg or slide by, regular double, definitely not head outside. I never really focus drill on those positions. I just wasn't great there, and I probably should have. I'm better at them now that I'm done, and I don't really need to perfect my head inside single anymore. So it would be a hard hand fight once I was in on the head inside single live, and that was kind of the position. In freestyle, it was when I got caught underneath off my shot and try not to get rolled, exposed.
Chest lock.
Yeah, chest lock. So those, in always head inside single, and then freestyle kind of a more of a position of chest lock position. So yeah, those positions.
Gotcha. So this one kind of goes hand in hand with the previous question, and I know growing up and coming through high school, Eric Burnett, Bernie was one of your main coaches, but you did spend a lot of time down at Jeff Jordan's, and this question, we don't have a viewer's name, but we have a question that wants to know how much of an influence Jeff Jordan was specifically on your takedowns.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Jordan, I can't say I loved going to the camps because they were hard, really hard, but I know they helped me a lot. Yeah, I mean, a big impact. I mean, my head inside single, I mean, I think, I got a lot of my stuff right from Bernie, but Coach Jordan did a great job of just drilling lots and lots of like head inside single, and I think that it's evolved a little bit since I was maybe in high school and stuff, but just getting it down where I just loved that position, and getting like to cut back, which is a position that my brother and I, we kind of lived at. Head inside single, they start to defend it, cut back. So I think those positions, I mean, just getting them drilled into our mind and learning them. I knew the head inside single, and I think I've probably introduced to the cutback with Jeff, which was just a huge move for me. I did it a lot, and it worked extremely well with my single leg. So big impact. Again, same feeling I had before I ran hard as feeling I got when I went to Coach Jordan's camps. Very stressful.
It's never a feeling you love, but a necessary feeling.
Yeah.
So we've got one more question we're going to hit here before we wrap up, and cool. This is from Cody M.
Oh gosh.
And
we might
know who Cody M is. I only know of one Cody M in my mind, and Cody wants to know how athletes should train to be able to manage their mental and physical fatigue during practice and competitions.
It's a good question.
Yeah,
it's from the Cody M that I think. That's a good question. Kind of train their minds, right? That's the question. Train their minds while they're at practice.
Yeah. To battle specifically physical fatigue.
Yeah.
In competition. Practice.
One way that I like to do it was to get on the treadmill, sprints, and then put yourself in the position right away. So it's like if you're doing a conditioning workout, I would do a minute and a half sprint on the treadmill, and then I need to get better at my defense. I get off the treadmill and someone shoots in on me, and now I have to focus. And we did it a lot in freestyle where we do the same thing, treadmill right to parterre defense. So getting that helps your mind, right? Because you're training yourself to be fatigued fast, similar to how you're going to be in a match, and then putting yourself in a bad position, and you have to try to win. So that was one way. Another way would be to just positive self-talk. Because when things get tough in the room, positive self-talk. Tell yourself, okay, it's going to be all right. Because there's days, I mean, I can't speak for anybody really except for myself, but even though I was winning a lot, plenty of days where I would get beat in a room by somebody I shouldn't have got beat by. And in your mind, I just got to keep going after it. And at the end of the day, I still didn't get any better or didn't win the practice. I was like, well, I got it today, but tomorrow I'll be back. So, positive self-talk is something that can really train your mind, especially when you're fatigued. And I think it kind of comes from the coaches, while you're walking. Is something I try to do with my guys is while they're jogging or walking in between goes, it's just feeding them information, putting themselves in the position, in the scenarios in their mind, okay, you just went off the mat, come back in, you got 20 seconds left, you're up by 1. Went off the mat, come back in, they shoot in, 15 seconds left, or 10 seconds to get away, 7 seconds to get away. I mean, you see these positions every time there is a wrestling match. You see these positions where there's short time and fatigue and all that stuff. So me being in the positions so much my whole life, I can help guide them when things get tough.
Awesome. Well, hey, Logan, I appreciate you stopping down to the studio today. We're going to have to do this again. I think good. We just got started, and they're already saying we're up to an hour. So hopefully things come back to a sense of normalcy soon. But for everyone that tuned in and listened today, we appreciate your questions. We appreciate you tuning in live. We've got a lot of good content coming up this week. We've got our normal episodes with Jason Bryant, where we're going to wrap up our 75th anniversary discussion. We've got Isaiah Martinez coming up tomorrow or the next day. John Reeder's coming on the show. So we've got a lot of cool new content, cool new guests that are coming on. So thanks again for tuning into the RUDIS Wrestling Podcast.